All right, let's dive into a short but incredibly powerful story from the Bible. It's about a Roman soldier, a total outsider, whose faith absolutely amazed Jesus. It's a fascinating moment, and it tells us so much about what real faith actually looks like. Let's get right into it. So that's what Jesus says right after his conversation with the soldier. I mean, what a stunning statement. Just think about that for a second. Out of everyone in Israel, the religious leaders, his own followers, Jesus says this Roman officer, this outsider, had the greatest faith. That raises a huge question, and it's the one we're going to explore today. What was it about this guy's faith that was so remarkable? To really get to the bottom of it, we're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll just walk through the story itself. Then, we'll uncover the first big lesson, how faith is all tied up in understanding authority. After that, we'll see how this story is part of a much bigger picture of Jesus as the healer who actually carries our suffering. And finally, we'll get super practical about how you can put this kind of faith into practice in your own life. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in Matthew chapter 8. Jesus, this Jewish teacher, has just walked into a town called Capernaum, and he's approached by a Roman centurion. Now, you got to understand, this is an officer in the army that's occupying their land. He's a man of power, a man of status, but he comes to Jesus not with a command, but with this really desperate plea. So the centurion's servant is at home, paralyzed and in just terrible pain. When Jesus offers to go to his house to heal him, the centurion actually stops him. He says, "Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof." But then he says the line that reveals everything. "Just say the word, and my servant will be healed." He believed that Jesus' command alone, spoken right there from a distance, was all it would take. That request, right there, is what amazed Jesus. And it gets us to the absolute heart of our first big lesson. See, what made this man's faith so great wasn't about the size of his feelings. It was all about the clarity of his understanding.
And this is such a game-changing insight. Great faith isn't about whipping up more emotion or just wishful thinking. It's about having a sharp, accurate view of who Jesus is. It's about getting his identity and his absolute power right. The centurion saw something that, apparently, a lot of other people were completely missing. And what's so cool is that the centurion explains his thinking. He draws this amazing parallel from his own life as a soldier. He says, "For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes." He got the chain of command. He recognized that just like his words had authority over his soldiers, Jesus' words had absolute authority over sickness, over creation itself. So here's the bottom line. The centurion's faith was great because it was correctly placed. He didn't have some vague hope. No, he identified a real, desperate need. He brought it to the only person who had the power to fix it, and he did it with a correct understanding of that person's absolute authority. That's the model for us. But this story doesn't stop there. Matthew, the writer, immediately zooms the camera out. He shows us that this healing wasn't just a one-off thing. It's actually part of a much larger pattern, and it reveals an even deeper truth about who Jesus is. We see this pattern play out right away. First, Jesus heals the servant with just a word. Next, he goes to Peter's house and heals his mother-in-law with a simple touch. And by that evening, word has gotten out and people are bringing all sorts of sick people to him, and he's healing them. A word, a touch, a crowd, it's a demonstration of total, comprehensive power. And this is where Matthew connects the dots for us. He quotes directly from the prophet Isaiah to explain the real meaning behind all these healings. This wasn't just a string of random miracles. This was the fulfillment of a specific prophecy written hundreds and hundreds of years earlier. This is so important. These healings are like giant flashing signs pointing to Jesus' true identity as the promised Messiah. He is the one who doesn't just fix our problems from afar. He's the one who actually takes on the weight of our broken world, the one who bears our suffering in his own body. And that connects these physical healings directly to the cross. The very same authority that commanded sickness to leave a body is the same authority that would ultimately defeat sin and death itself. The one who bore their diseases is the very one who would bear our sins. And the one who healed them back then is the same one who hears our prayers right now. Okay, so we've got the what. Now let's talk about the so what. Understanding all this is one thing, but how does it actually change the way we live? Let's get practical with a few clear ways to put this kind of faith into action.
So here are 3 challenges for you this week. First, get specific. Don't just bring your general anxiety to God. Bring one particular need, just like the centurion did, and trust that all Jesus has to do is say the word. Second, take a minute and really think. Do you truly believe Jesus has authority over that one thing you're most worried about? And third, this story is way too good to keep to yourself. Share it with someone who really needs to hear it.
And we can build on that. We can act like those townspeople in the story. They saw what Jesus could do, and they immediately started bringing everyone they knew who was hurting to him. We can do that same thing in prayer. And we can practice that same directness, that same confidence that the centurion had, approaching Jesus not with doubt, but with a clear understanding of who he is.
So if this whole explainer boils down to just one word, one single takeaway, let it be this: authority. The centurion's faith was great because he understood Jesus as authority. Our faith grows not when our feelings get bigger, but when our view of his authority gets clearer. He has the authority. All he has to do is say the word.
And that leaves us with one last thing to really chew on. Matthew connects all these healings to that verse in Isaiah 53, showing that Jesus bears our diseases, our infirmities, our suffering. He didn't just come to deal with our guilt. He came to step into our pain. So the question for you, for me, is this: how does knowing that, really knowing it, change the way you bring your own pain to him? That's something worth thinking about.